Everyone, and welcome to the Georgia Rehoused Pre-Application Workshop. My name is Ashley Sills. I am the Director of the Office of the State Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless Commission, and I will be your presenter today. The mission of the State Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless Commission is to support communities that provide housing and services for individuals and families striving to end their state of homelessness. There are three functions of the State Housing Trust Fund. The first being the State Housing Trust Fund Administration, which includes the administration of the State Housing Trust Fund. The second is the State Housing Trust Fund initiatives and programs, to include the Stable Housing Accountability Program, Special Voucher Assistance Fund, Georgia Rehoused, which we will talk about today, and others to be launched this year. And the last function of the State Housing Trust Fund is the Collaborative Partnership for Federal Programs, which includes the Balance of State Continuum of Care, statewide HMIS administration, and Emergency Solutions Grant. Today, during this information session, we will go over what is Georgia Rehoused, the overview of the Georgia Rehoused pre-application, funding priorities and categories, eligibility requirements, pre-application procedure, and then we will also open it up for questions. So what is Georgia Rehoused? Georgia Rehoused supports local efforts to reduce or end homelessness in communities. It is a single, streamlined application process to reduce application requirements for local partners, and it includes notices of funding from several different funding sources with their own funding priorities and guidelines. Now we'll get into the overview of the Georgia Rehoused pre-application. So this pre-application will determine basic eligibility, assess project readiness. It will also help DCA determine timing and maximum award amounts for each funding round, and it creates a streamlined application process. The funding for the Georgia Rehoused is as follows: permanent housing opportunities, which will be up to $5 million, and that money will come from the State Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless Reserve. The next will be small scale rental housing developments, which will be up to $4 million, and this will be under the Home ARC program. And we also will have non-congregate shelter or transitional housing opportunities. That will be up to $35 million, and that funding comes from the amended fiscal year 26 budget for the State Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless Appropriation. And then lastly, we will have homeless services to include 2-year shelter operations and encampment removal and relocations. And that will be up to $10 million in funding, which will be from the amended fiscal year 26 State Housing Trust Fund for the Homeless Appropriation. Now we'll get into our funding categories. The funding categories are as follows. In your pre-application, you must agree to accept the following based on funding source. So if you're going to be willing to accept state funds, which would be under the State Housing Trust Fund, you must comply with the State Housing Trust Fund program rules, the Georgia Environment Protection Act requirements, the Georgia Public Work Construction Act requirements, and meet State Housing Trust Fund grant reporting and monitoring requirements. If you are willing to accept federal funding, which would be under Home ARP, you must comply with all applicable federal regulations, including but not limited to the National Environmental Protection Act requirements, federal reporting and monitoring requirements, Davis Beacon requirements, if unit count is 12 or more, federal procurement standards, and Home American Rescue Plan requirements, including qualified population eligibility. And you must demonstrate the capacity to manage federal funds and maintain compliance. If you are willing to accept both state and federal funds, you must meet all of the requirements listed above for both funding sources. So now we'll get into the basic eligibility requirements under the pre-application. The first being a collaborative partnership, the second being unsheltered homeless impact, and then the third being HMIS. And we will go through each of these individually. So the first requirement is the collaborative applicant partnership. So applicants must be collaborative partnerships representing local community interests and decisions. That collaborative partnership may include a representative from a nonprofit sector, school system, housing authority, healthcare or business community, development authorities, development partners, or others. The collaborative partnership must include local government entity. A development authority may participate but cannot replace a local government applicant. And then applicants must demonstrate an active documented partnership. If they don't have an active documented partnership, they must if the partnership is not yet formalized, they must provide documentation indicating that there is an advisory board that is actively working towards an MOA to solidify that collaborative partnership. and the applicant must provide a development agreement or letter of intent outlining the process by which they will select development partners. The next requirement is the unsheltered homeless population. Applicants should include most recent unsheltered homeless numbers from the point in time count data. Applicants who believe that the most recent available point in time count data is not reflective of their unsheltered homelessness in their community, they can submit a narrative explanation with other data sources outlining their community's unsheltered homelessness. Applicants should also include the minimum number of homeless individuals to be rehoused or sheltered through the project for which funding is requested, and provide a brief narrative explanation of how the anticipated outcome number was developed. Applicants must also, lastly, demonstrate that they are registered in HMIS, have at least one staff member trained from the service provider with system access, and indicate the date the provider can begin entering data into HMIS. If you don't already have access to the HMIS system, you can use the link below to gain access to the system. And on that link, it will provide you details on how you go about gaining access to that system. Next, we'll talk about project proposals and plan. So in addition to meeting those basic eligibility requirements, you will be required to submit a project proposal and plan. In that project proposal and plan, all proposals must include the following information: your population served, and that's going to include the number of homeless individuals to be rehoused or sheltered to the project, and a brief narrative explanation of how the anticipated outcome was developed. Next, it will be your service delivery and program duration, and that's going to be a detailed description of how services will be provided to the unsheltered population, and you need to provide an explanation of how requested funding will reduce the unsheltered homelessness in your community and whether the request is for a new or existing activity. Next, all proposals must also include, if communities are managing multiple funding sources, they may ask for a reimbursement from state funds to cover encampment renewal or shelter operation costs for activities that occurred in 2026 before application or award. And you must demonstrate how this reimbursement would allow you to repurpose more restricted funding sources to make a more significant impact on ending unsheltered homelessness in your community. In addition, you also need to talk about your community engagement, and what that will look like is a brief summary of community's involvement in the proposal development and or plans to involve your resident stakeholders. And then you will also need to provide us a budget and financial documentation. So you must submit a complete and comprehensive budget and internal operations budget that ensures long-term operational viability of the project or demonstrates support until the unsheltered homeless reduction is met. You must submit this budget documentation in Excel format, and this does not count towards your 6-page limit for your project proposal and plan. There is no specific template for the budget, and match percentage will be required for the award amount will be released in each of the notice of fundings, but we do encourage all applicants to go ahead and provide that match funding in their proposed project plan. And you must also, in addition to providing your financial documentation and your budget, you must also indicate if the project will request federal, state, or both funding. If you are willing to accept both state and federal funds, you must be able to demonstrate the ability to manage both funding streams, including clear cost allocation and compliance with the most restrictive applicable rules. We'll now get into your project proposal and plan requirements if you are if you are requesting capital funding only. We will go over these sections in the next few slides. So for your project location, you need to identify a site and provide initial site assessments to include plans for acquisition and site development, such as zoning requirements, your utility and transportation, environmental considerations, and you should also anticipate a site visit to this location that has been identified. For your development type, you will need to identify whether it's going to be residential, shelter, transitional housing, and manufactured housing may be included in your residential or transitional housing project plan. For your development timeline, we ask that you consider the following activities from application to in-service. And that would include your environmental reviews, your local municipality approvals and permits, site preparation, site and utility assessments, bidding and procurement of all contractors and consultants, your geotechnical report for new constructions only, owner agreements with an architect and general contractor, the schedule of values determination, accessibility requirements, your construction schedule, design development and changes, certificate of completion, the final inspection, your furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and post-development and preparing for in-service activities, and any other things that you deem relevant to this project plan. Please also note that all of these activities, not all of these activities may be funded through the requested funding. Now we'll get into the pre-application procedure. So the pre-applications for the Georgia Rehoused grant must be submitted electronically. The link to that is on the Georgia Rehoused landing page on the DCA website. I do want to make note here that the pre-application deadline has been extended from April the 7th to April the 15th. 2026 at 5 p.m. We will update the site and the notice to reflect this new date for pre-application closure. In that pre-application, you must upload the documentation of your local collaborative partnership, either the MOA or advisory committee documentation, evidence of local government participation as a primary or co-applicant, the documentation of your unsheltered homeless impact, your project plan and proposal, and your complete project budget. Again, there is no specific format at pre-application for that budget. It just must be submitted in Excel format for us. And lastly, you must upload your HMI registration confirmation and a date of anticipated data entry readiness.
Excuse me, Ashley, this is Elizabeth. We have one question on the chat by Carrie Taylor Span.
Mm-hmm.
It reads, are operating properties or properties under redevelopment also eligible?
So based on at pre-application stage, it should be just proof that you have those three requirements. The notice of funding will detail out what is allowable, but you can if you meet those three basic eligibility requirements, you can apply under the pre-application process. So
we have another question on the chat. Do you know when the 2026 PIT count will be available, or should we rely on the 2024 unsheltered PIT count?
Ashley, I can answer that one. They will not be able to do the 2026 numbers. They need to use the 2024.
Thank you, Lakeisha.
Mhm.
Evan, I see your question. Are there match requirements for the capital funding request? There will be match requirements for all of these funding notices, but that information will be released at the time that the actual notice of fundings go out for each funding priority. But there will be match requirements.
And I know, Ashley, just to add one thing onto that, hello, Laura Ann Holland, Director of Strategy at DCA. This pre-application process is in a lot of ways like a letter of intent or a opportunity for you guys to demonstrate the need and the project ideas in your community. So we do still encourage folks, even if you're not quite sure about the full extent of what the match will be, to go ahead and contribute to this and submit your pre-application so that DCA and making award determinations across the entire upcoming fiscal year for this funding will know what kind of projects are out there, even if communities aren't yet ready to meet all of the individual requirements. So please still submit your pre-application even if that match is not yet clear for your community.
We do have another question. For nonprofit projects considered under a community app, do they need to be within a COC and or submitting to HMIS?
So the requirement for the collaborative partnership is that there is a local government entity as the primary or a co-applicant on the application. And you should be registered for HMIS. So that is one of the requirements, is that you are registered for HMIS. Elizabeth, are those all of the questions that we currently have in the chat?
Thank you. Oh, we have a couple more coming in.
Okay.
What is the award period and range for agency awards?
So that information will be released in the notice of funding, the award period and the range for agency awards. That all will be released when we release the notice of funding for each funding priority. What is the expected timeline for using the requested funds? That information will also be released when we release the notice of funding for the individual funding priorities. Are these expenses reimbursed funds only, or is there an option for scheduled allocation? Evan, that information will also be released when we release the notice of funding for the individual funding priorities. Does the HMO need to be through the nonprofit or must it be held by a local government? The HMI registration needs to be registered through your service provider that will be providing services to the individuals in your proposed project. If a local government is applying for the funding, should they submit a letter of approval of local government involvement? Kenya, I'm not sure of your question. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more for me?
Hi, I think I seen in one of the requirements that local government has to be. I can't remember which slide it was, but I just wanted to make sure that they had to submit a LOC stating that they are involved, even though they're the submitter.
So if the local government has to be a collaborative partnership, so there has to be proof that you are working with your local government, and that can be in the form of an MOA. If the local government at pre-application stage, there either needs to be an MOA or a advisory committee that is working towards a partnership agreement with the primary applicant. If the local government is the co-applicant, and vice versa, that they're working with another agency. So if you're applying that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Related to that same thing with, as the applicant, and now it's escaping me.
Yes.
I'll come back.
Okay, no worries, Marcus. No worries. Yes, Derek, we will release some updated information on kind of the release of the NOFAs based upon the extended timeline for the application, for the pre-application. That information should be on the website soon.
I remember now.
Okay, go ahead, Marcus.
For the MOA, is it necessary to have it in place already, or can there be a letter of intent to establish the MOA as a part of the application?
So yes, there can be an advisory committee that you can show proof that you guys are working towards a partnership with the local government entity. Alec, yes, to clarify, local government can be the lead applicant with the local nonprofit, yes. Does the MOA need to be specifically for this grant, or can it be an example and that includes project partnerships and not specific to? Carolyn, we just need to see that there is a local government partnership in place with whatever organization and their local government. Deborah, so if I hear you correctly, both the local government and also any projects or nonprofits included, HMIS is required. Yes, there is an HMIS requirement.
Can I get, no,
Tim, I think you were talking.
oh, thank you very much. We are a transitional housing program up in Dahlonega, and it's a faith-based ministerial position supported by all the community charities. We don't, I guess I'm just curious, how do you work with a local government? I mean, that sounds like, is this like what are they? I mean, are you talking about a city council, a mayor's office? I mean, maybe it's a tough question to answer, but I don't, yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's a firm requirement and we have no other way to get around it. I don't know how we do that.
And could you say what your organization is again for me, Tim? You were
I am
going in and out.
representing, yes, I am representing Jeremiah's Place. We have a transitional housing program up in Dahlonega, Georgia, which we are expanding. And it's supported by all the church ministries, the charities, but it's not supported by the government. Now we work with Ninth District and DFACS and other government agencies for support, but they are not partners. So we have to get some kind of government partner to proceed ahead. Is that correct?
So yes, your local government will either need to be the primary applicant or the co-applicant on the pre-application to show that there's a collaborative partnership in the community.
Okay, kind of stupid question, but what is a local government? Are you talking about a mayor's office, a city council member,
So for
a
you,
county board member?
it would be your city. I think you said you're in Dahlonega. So for
Mhm.
instance, it would be the city of Dahlonega.
Okay, the operation is in the county, so if we got the county board of commissioners to support it, that'd be okay, kind of like that? A
I'm
county
not sure.
representative?
I'm not sure how the city of Dahloneka's governmental entity is set up,
Okay,
but it would just need to be your city of Dahlonega, for instance.
okay, thank you. We'll see what we can do. That's tricky.
Yes, the slides will be on the web page for the Georgia Rehoused on the DCA website. So these will go up after the webinar. Jennifer, I think I see your hand.
Yes, hi. Just a super quick question. We do have a meeting with our city today, but do they have to have a fiscal stake in this? Like, do they have to fiscally be a stakeholder?
Are you meaning by providing dollars to the project?
Yes.
Or
yes.
So your match dollars are determined by you. So that would be kind of a determination on you. You will just need to show that collaborative partnership with your local government.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, we can drop the slide, the link to the Georgia Rehoused webpage on DCA's website. Elizabeth or Eric, can you guys drop the link to the GA Rehoused webpage into the chat? Everett, can you combine different categories of funding in a single application, or do they need to be separate? Can you kind of expound upon what your question is asking so I can make sure I answer it correctly?
Sure. So if we're looking to tackle multiple of the funding sources, like permanent housing, homeless services, small scale rental, would it behoove us to separate that into multiple applications or pre-applications in this case? Or can we have one like omnibus application that kind of shows the full set of services we're looking to provide?
So in your pre-application, you can let us know that you're willing to accept both federal and state funding. As far as when the notices are released, you would need to be able to speak to all of those funding sources. So each of these funding priorities will have different notice of funding with different requirements in them. But in your pre-application, you can let us know that you're willing to accept both federal and state funding. Have you shared the anticipated award amount? If so, we have not shared the anticipated award amount, Marcus. We will be releasing those in the actual notice of funding. I want to make sure I got everyone's questions in everyone's hands. Everett, did you have another question for us? Okay, I see we have a few more questions. Hello, I work with Power. We are in the West End, Atlanta area. Can you please clarify this in the capacity of what or who will be acceptable for a nonprofit? Collaborative partnerships must include local government entity. A local government must serve as the primary applicant. Acceptable. Yes, so on the application, if a nonprofit is applying for this funding, they must show proof that they have either their municipal corporation or county government as a co-applicant on the pre-application.
Hello?
Hi, this is L'Oreal. I asked that question. So to be more specific, can you tell me specifically what qualifies as the municipal corporations or county governments? That's what I need the clarification on. Like, who is it, like the city, your councilman, like what specifically counts to meeting that requirement?
So if let's say you're applying and you are, let's say in Decatur, you would need the city of Decatur or the DeKalb County government as an applicant on your application, as a co-applicant on your application.
This is Tim again. I got another question. That same question on the government authority. We are working with, let's say in the county, we're working with our county water authority as a partnership who's putting in a water line for us, which makes us available to expand. Is that a government entity, a county water authority?
Ashley, can I jump in here to clarify this?
Yeah.
Yeah, folks. So the state of Georgia has a statutory process by which entities are registered as municipal corporations, whether that is a city or a town or a county, right? And so we're requiring partnership support from that municipal corporation in order to apply. That is going to look different in different communities, right? But it would not just be the participation of a single council person or a commissioner. It would be a representation of the entire municipal corporation as indicated through a letter of intent or a formal memorandum of agreement that has been approved by that local government entity and is signed by the relevant entities. I hope that helps clarify.
Cynthia, I saw your hand up and then Marcus will go to you.
I'm still trying to understand about local governments. When you apply for other DCA grants, you have to get the local government that you're applying in to fill out a form to say that this is consistent with their plan. And DCA has a list of people that have been approved for each local government that we should contact. Should we use that list?
Did it? Cynthia, just to kind of clarify that, no, we would not use that list. Kind of to Laura Ann, it would be that list. I'm not sure who is on that list, so I can't speak to that list.
I think if you're concerned about who your local government contacts are, both the Georgia Municipal Association and the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia maintain that information on their websites. There are 536 cities in Georgia and 159 counties. So there's a lot, there's a lot of local government contacts. I'd also say that you could reach out to your DCA regional rep if you don't know who the local government contact is for a specific city or county. I think maybe using the municipal corporation language is throwing people, but what we're talking about when we say that, we're meaning city governments.
Can I say something? Because we're with the city of Brunswick and we're working with a nonprofit right now with the Georgia One, and we run it through our planning department. So maybe reaching out to your planning codes economic director or DDA, but in your area, talking to one of them maybe can get you in. But we're running the Georgia One with a nonprofit. They are the masterminds behind it. They are the ones doing all the work, but that funnel comes through planning and codes. And our director is the one who oversees it with our regional rep and with DCA to make sure all the funding and the paperwork and everything that they need is submitted properly, while the nonprofit is out there doing the real work, boots on the ground, if that kind of helps. So maybe your planning department might be a good place to start.
Can you explain that place to start? I'm confused. We're going through planning and zoning.
Sorry guys to interrupt. I know I appreciate the dialogue around connecting with local governments and how to do that. And I would totally encourage you guys to follow up with the suggestion that Karen Thornton, our Director of Regional Services, had to look at the list from the Georgia Municipal Association and the Association of County Commissions and Governments. DCA staff won't be able to advise at this time, at this part of this webinar, on exactly who you should contact in each city, right? That's going to look different across the board, but I think as a starting point, if you don't know where to go, Karen's suggestion is where I'd like to leave this part of the conversation, and now we can pivot to other questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura Ann. Marcus, I see your hand is still up.
Thank you. We have a community board that is advising our program, but it is not a board constituted by the city of Lawrenceville itself. Does that matter?
Would it matter in what way, Marcus?
You mentioned the advisory board and the need to have an advisory board towards this memorandum of understanding. So there is an advisory board, it exists. But there are DDA, Arts Commission, other kinds of things that are organized by the city itself versus an external board.
So it would need, it should be, so if you do not have an MOA in place for your collaborative partnership, it should be an advisory board composed of those of the local government and whatever agency is going to be, or agencies that are going to be working on this project, and that you guys are working towards a collaborative partnership MOA. You're welcome. I do want to kind of hop back into the pre-application procedures. So for the pre-application, they will be reviewed for completeness, the basic eligibility requirements, and readiness. All pre-applications will receive a determination letter with recommendations to apply in an upcoming competitive round or defer to a future application cycle, tentatively planned for fall 2026 and early spring 2027 after addressing proposal considerations from the trust fund. And if you guys have any questions after this presentation, please send an email to shtf@dca.ga.gov. I will open it to some more questions if anyone has them before we conclude today. And I'll check to see that we've grabbed all the little questions that have been placed in the chat.
Hello, my name is Jidney. I work for Atlanta Legal Aid. It's a nonprofit organization that provides direct legal services to low individuals to prevent homelessness, housing loss, and address, other housing conditions. I'm curious to know if you would be eligible for such project.
So this project is going to be, well, the funding priorities of Georgia Rehoused are permanent housing solutions, transitional housing and non-congregate shelter, as well as a small scale residential for manufactured housing. And the last one would be 2 years of shelter operations or encampment removal and relocation cost. So those would be the kind of funding priorities for this grant. And I'll go back to the funding priorities slide for everyone.
Thank you.
Kenya?
I have two questions. My first question, I just want to confirm that the proof of deed, utility assessments, zoning, all of that is needed for the full application, not the pre-application. We should anticipate on submitting that later.
Yes, so we need
Okay.
to kind of see where you are in your project. So the pre-application is to assess project readiness, as well as if you meet those eligibility requirements on there. So the pre-application is just for us to see kind of what is out there, what projects are being worked on, and what state those projects are in currently, what stages they're in currently.
Okay, so you want us to speak on that, but you don't want to see that until the full application, those attachments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I also want to confirm, will the full application submission deadline be pushed back as well?
Yes, we'll release some updated timeframes later today or tomorrow, since we have pushed back the application deadline, the pre-application deadline. So
Okay.
be expecting some updated timelines.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ashley,
Yeah, hi, Everett.
hi. Just so, are congregate shelters included?
Non-congregate shelters are included.
Only non-congregate shelters?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Deborah?
Can I clarify that on the non-congregate shelter front?
Yeah.
I think so in order to understand, because there's different definitions of that, right, under different rules. So please, we will release the official funding requirements for all 4 of these funding sources next week, as Ashley mentioned, and the specific eligible activities will be listed in those funding requirements. Please include your project proposal as you're submitting your pre-application, right? Please include what your local community has decided is what makes sense for you guys, right? And I think in terms of those eligible activities, you'll be able to understand specifically in those notices of funding what sheltering requirements there are. I just wanted to jump in there, Ashley, because that NCS word means different things in different spaces, and want to make sure that everybody is aware that the eligible activities will be released next week.
Thank you. Deborah?
I think Laura just answered my question, but
Okay.
mine was around, it's just a little tricky to plan. So my client is not a part of a COC. And so sometimes I know as NOFOs through DCA, COC involvement is required, and then sometimes it's not. So was trying to get ahead of it to see what you think if COC involvement is going to be required. Laura, that might be a question for you too.
So Deborah, it is not a requirement for this program. However, we know that the COC infrastructure is essential, and part of the, tools all working together are that we're expanding our coordinated entry access points around the state. So the long-term expectation would likely be that if there is not a COC entity in your area, right, if there's not a participating partner, that this would be a process by which you would end up becoming a COC participating partner, because that's a vital piece of our homeless service infrastructure. But it is not a requirement in order to apply for this funding.
Okay, great. I have one last follow-on question on that. So they're expanding multiple housing units, like cottage style. It's like a 16-unit space. And so let's say 8 of them become COC funded, and the other or COC where they're receiving placements from the COC there, while the others are from their internal program referrals and placements. For the reporting and tracking, would we only report on the ones that are through these funding streams, like basically where the money is touching those units specifically?
So Deborah, just to make sure we got your question
Yep.
correct, you're asking if the cottages that are not funded by this funding, are you required to use the HMIS system for those clients?
Yes, and or would it be okay for us would it be of interest or in alignment if you were to like split those up, to have some units be either COC down the road, or not? Or would it be more integrated to have the whole program be dedicated to COC?
So to
Ashley?
answer, go ahead, Laura Ann. I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, Deborah, this sounds like a very specific question that's probably going to
Yep.
require, so if you could send that to the SHTF email,
Got it.
that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you. I've got it.
Jennifer?
Yes, my question is specific to HMIS requirement, because it was noted in the application that, and I'm guessing this is specific to COCs that have HMIS, or communities that are making an application that already demonstrate HMIS activities. With that, in those cases, it would be a requirement of the application going forward. Is that correct?
Oh, Jennifer, I just want to make sure I got your question. Are you asking, is the requirement just for those individuals that are already using HMIS?
No, if a community, if the application is coming from a COC where HMIS is already encouraged from homeless service providers, then making the application from a COC that already is HMIS compliant, I guess, if you will, the application that we pulled offline says that you had a requirement of HMIS participation by at least one user for the project. Is that not accurate, or is that going to change?
No, so if you are, let's say you're asking for funding for for services, there or any of them, there has to be, you have to be documenting these clients under this funding in HMIS. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I just wanted to confirm because the response to the other question was no, HMIS would not be a requirement to push the application forward. So I was just trying to understand yes or no.
So one of the requirements of this funding is that you are registered in HMIS to use the HMIS system at the point that you begin. Like one of the basic requirements for this is that you have HMIS access.
Understand. Okay.
Mhm.
So it's not that it has to be now, it's when the project is opened to
For-
participants. Is that correct?
For pre-application, you have to already be registered in the system to use HMIS.
Okay. That's clarifying. Thank you.
You're welcome. Cynthia?
You all might have already said this. I had some problems with my computer in the beginning, but are you targeting certain parts of the state, or are these projects available to all parts of the state?
So this funding is available to all parts of the state. The State Housing Trust Fund funds projects throughout the entire state of Georgia.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Edward, the PowerPoint for this will be posted on the DCA website for the GA Rehoused webinar. So we will release the PowerPoint for this, everyone.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I do have a question about the HMIS. So if we've worked as supporting, excuse me, owners in the past, we're looking to do our own projects. So our logins would have been for management company to get into your system. So will that qualify? And my other question was, we have pretty much 14 acres of raw land. Does it have to be an expansion, or can it be a new project coming out of the ground?
Howard, those details will be released next week in the notice of funding of what will be eligible expenses or eligible activities under this funding.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can. Hey, Ashley, I have a question. This isn't Everett, this is Natalie, but in terms of our transitional housing project, we are planning on using vouchers from the Housing Authority, but there is an issue with the shortfall right now of issuing new vouchers. And I was wondering if there was any information about that being alleviated in the near future, if you know.
That is not information that I have, Emily. Cynthia, I see your hand is up. Did you have another question for us?
No, I just didn't lower my hand. I
Oh,
apologize.
okay. Okay. Jennifer?
Yeah, I apologize. You may have mentioned this and I did hop on the meeting late, but did you
No
all
worries.
talk about at all any future timelines for other tranches of funding under this 45 mil?
So we're looking at other rounds of funding, and they will be in fall of 2026 and early spring of 2027.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I want to make sure that I got everyone's hand that was up. I don't see any other hands. Do we have any other questions? Melanie,
there's one
no,
in the
we have,
chat.
oh, okay. Melanie, we have not released, the notice of funding dates yet.
Actually, there were a couple of questions in the chat that I don't think you saw. The
Okay.
first one was coming from Deborah Lube, and she said if certain units of a project are funded through these funds, example, 6 units of cottage type programs out of 12, does HMIS extend to all units or only the funded units?
No, we answered that for her. Deborah came off mute and provided us that question.
Perfect.
Evan?
Hey, Ashley, I put a question. I just want to make sure, you didn't miss it, but, and for the pre-application stage, we've got, sort of initial site control, government interest and partnership, but, we're not at the space where we've, gone out to bid or anything for a contractor or developer. Is that negate eligibility for this pre-application process? Because we don't have an identified contractor or developer, gotten to that space yet?
No,
No,
Evan, definitely not.
No. No, a part of your development timeline, we do want to see kind of what that bidding and procurement of all your contractors and consultants are going to look like. So that's just something that you need to kind of lay out the timeline for that in your development timeline when you submit your project plan.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Oh, while I'm here, I'm like, yeah. Well, I've got you captured, Ashley. I had another question just to clarify as far as the government partnership. I know I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here. Would a letter of intent to partner or letter of intent from the local government to partner or to develop an MOA or MOU be sufficient for the pre-application?
If you can show us proof that you guys are working towards an MOA for a collaborative partnership, that will work for the pre-application.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ashley?
Lakeisha, that sounds like your voice. Lakeisha.
There's a lot of questions about HMIS, and before we answer them, I want to say that we should, as you're updating the other things, we're going to update some wording with HMIS because I see there's a lot of questions about COC involvement and what they have to do about HMIS. So I want to clarify that before we answer any more questions or give out that link for HMIS. So I will talk to you afterwards and then we can send it out to everyone.
We can put it in the FAQs and we can update the FAQs around HMIS.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have about 5 minutes left, so I just want to make sure that we got everyone's questions. And if you do have questions after this call, please feel free to send the email to the State Housing Trust Fund email box. It is shtf@dca.ga.gov. If there are no more questions, thank you all for joining in today, and we look forward to seeing your pre-applications being submitted.
We had one more question. This is Elizabeth. If we can share the HMIS enrollment link again from the slide.
Yeah, I think, Elizabeth, that's the question that Lakeisha said we need to follow up on before we send that out again.
Okay, thank you.
Ashley, since there's no more questions, let's go ahead and end the webinar for everybody.
Okay.